This is Sabrina Jade, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with E.I.T.H.R.
You're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with your host, E.I.T.H.R.
Yo, what up? It's your boy D-Cal here at the E.I.T.H.R podcast, live from the GNSHQ here in Northern California. What's up, people? How everyone doing up? Anyway, like I said, the E.I.T.H.R podcast, I want to welcome everyone who is new to the podcast. I want to welcome everybody who is returning. Welcome back. E.I.T.H.R podcast is the elephant in the room where we discuss topics and issues that most people would generally have a hard time discussing with their peers. And we've got to have the conversations from a multitude of perspectives. Even if you don't agree with what we're saying here, at least you'll have a better understanding of what you're disagreeing with. You can follow me on social media. Instagram and Twitter is really easy to find. The E.I.T.H.R, T-H-E-E-I-T-H-R. Give it a follow. GNSETV.com. Go ahead and subscribe to that. Appreciate that. And 916-282-9372. That's the phone number to the podcast where you can shoot a text message or give a phone call. Give some suggestion on what you would like to talk about. And we can keep it anonymous if you choose to, whatever. Today's going to be a really light topic. I wanted to go really hardcore and offend some people and piss some people off. But nah, I'm not going to do that today. So you're welcome. But next week, we might, get into some gangster shit. We're going to see what happens. So, as you know, we usually do something like we give a shout out and an inspirational, motivational to kind of start the podcast off. 131 episodes, and I've been getting some positive feedback from that. So we're gonna keep going strong. So shout out, what I want to do is I want to give a shout out to Christie's Confections. I believe we talked about that last episode. It's custom cakes. You guys could you can go to the E.I.T.H.R podcast Instagram and follow the link to go to her Instagram to follow. But it's Christie's _confections, custom cakes. She has go-go jars and all that fun stuff. So if you're looking for birthdays or any type of special occasions with sweet tooths, go ahead and do that. So I just want to go ahead and give a plug for that. So inspirational, motivational. I sent this to a professional consultant or counselor, if you will, and she, responded back. She fell in love with it. So I kind of figured that a lot of people, especially in today's world, millennials especially, and boomers, you guys can relate to this. So it's something I feel a lot of people, including yours truly, needs to get a grasp on. And it goes like this. You're not healing to be able to handle trauma. You're used to trauma. You're healing to be able to handle the joy. And that's a real profound thing if you really put it into context with whatever you got going on. Because most people who are glass half empty, we tend to look at things as something's going to go wrong. It's bound to go wrong. It's inevitable that something's going to go wrong. And that's usually because a few different equations. It's because that's your experience. Whenever you get close to something, the rug gets pulled from underneath you, and you realize you got to start back a few steps behind square one. Yours truly is just as guilty as this. And if you notice, or if you tend to look at that for your choice of vision, that's exactly what you're going to see. And it's mind over matter. It really truly is. Because when great things happen, or accomplishments, or when you accomplish milestones and you achieve goals that you set, you wait for the other shoe to drop. And the teacher understands this, because she's constantly telling me this whenever I achieve a milestone. So I do it personally for me to keep myself humble, so I don't go over it with celebratory moments and thinking that I made something when I haven't, despite me having to. But a lot of people, they just refuse to accept anything happens good in their world because they're just not used to it. You have to accept the fact that, nah, bro, you did that. You did that. You know, Robert De Niro even said, when you got to look at things on an even keel. Don't get too high when it's good. Don't get too low when it's bad. Kind of just accept it. So there's different ways of approaching it, but you also have to just process the joy when something good happens. I understand there's people out there who are going to complain about sunny days because tomorrow is going to rain. It's like, why don't you enjoy today? Don't ruin today because you're expected to be miserable tomorrow. Because then when tomorrow happens, you're upset you didn't enjoy yesterday. Like, take it as it comes and appreciate that. So I think a lot of people, again, including myself, who is out there going through whatever you're going through, man, you definitely need to appreciate what you've done. Because if you look back to where you started, you'll see the distance between where you are. And sometimes we need to do that. So that's what I wanted to get into on that. So what we're going to talk about today is I was watching the film X-Files. Love that movie. I used to love that show. That show was dope. And if you kind of pay attention, man, a lot of things that were on TV or movies or whatever, you know, X amount of years ago, they kind of told you where shit was at, but we kind of saw it from an entertainment perspective. And now here we are. So I kind of went down a black hole, and I'm going to get into that in a quick second. And we're going to make this a very entertaining and brief episode so you guys can enjoy your weekend. It's your boy D-Cal, the E.I.T.R. Podcast. We'll get a shot from the sponsor right quick, and then we'll be right back.
Stop stalling and start miling. Mile.today. That's MILE.today. Mile today. Make it look easy.
Okay, so shout out to my people. Marissa, she's on her way to take a vacation, a much needed stress relieving trip. If you know, you know. And if you don't know, well, you don't need to know. But if she's listening to this, you enjoy that nice little getaway, lady. There you go. So, want to get right into this. We're doing an expansion for the GNS Inc. here at the HQ. And so what I mean by that is, come Monday, there's going to be an addition to what we got going. So I like to keep everything private, but y'all my peoples. So we're about to make this happen. We're expanding for the GNS Entertainment division. So what's going to happen is, come Monday, Tuesday at the latest, we're going to have 2 separate locations. So one location is going to be more for the podcast. It's going to be for the writing and publishing. And the new location that we're going to be getting is going to be dedicated to the music, movie, and media. So I'm really excited. So I got a lot of different projects going on, and it's very difficult to kind of keep everything just under one spot. And so the team is going to be growing in addition, so that way I can dedicate, hey, you go and take care of this here while I take care of this there. That way everyone's not walking and stepping all over each other. So I'm kind of stoked about it. It's one of those things where, again, I have to deal with my trauma so I can accept the joy. And so for this past week, I've been really, just excited about it. So it's coming. So next week, I most likely will not be doing any podcasting because I'll be focusing on getting all that going. So if I can squeeze some time in to do the episodes 132, 133, 134, I got y'all. But if not, understand that we're moving forward so we can do bigger and do better. So that's kind of what that is. Just want to give you guys a heads up on that. So I'm super excited. We just also, for the GNS Entertainment aspect, your boy got his very first guitar. I think I posted it on GNS Entertainment on the Instagram and Facebook page. So you can go ahead and follow that, GNS E.I.T.H.R TAINMNT. I had to spell it in my head. So GNS Entertainment. So basically it's spelled the way it sounds, but there's no E in the MNT. So we're gonna got the guitar going, so I'm gonna take guitar lessons on that. The next step is to go ahead and get the keyboard. I got my drum set that I got kind of reserved. So literally going to be a one-man band, and that's kind of where the additional spot is going to take its place. So doing everything kind of the way Prince would do it, where you learn how to play all the instruments for his production. That's where your boy's going. So it's not just going to be something on a DAW. It's going to be live music as well. So keep your fingers crossed. Wish me luck. And when everything gets situated, who knows? Maybe you guys can come have a jam session with your boy, get on the podcast, have it recorded. Oh, we're going to have a pool table in there too. Shit's about to be crazy. It's going to be a fun little get together for grown folks who actually want to be productive and moving forward and kind of get away from the monotony of your world. So I'm welcoming some of you guys into mine. So that's going to be fun. So that's what that is. Fridays, we're also bringing back today. We're going to be bringing back What's Your Mile segment. We're going to have that at the end of the show. What's Your Mile is obviously a spin-off from the sponsor of Mile Clothing Line. So Mile stands for Make It Look Easy. So we're going to talk about what we're going to mile this week, and then come next week or the week after that, if there's no episode, how we fared on that. So we're going to do that. So I wanted to kind of just share that with you guys. Yay for your boy. Now, I said I was watching the X-Files movie. The first one. They made two of them. The first one came out back in '98. And if you know the show, it's easy kind of to follow how it works. But it's basically about extraterrestrial life and if there's life on Earth and how it intertwines with one another and how the government understands how things work and they conspire to cover it up, and basically the kind of shit that goes on in real life today, right? But it was happening so many years ago, and ironically, there's more belief that shit do exist. So watching the show, okay, so it made me think about some stuff. So I kind of went down my own little rabbit hole, and it made me think about the universe and all kind of weird stuff, right? So follow me here. Have you guys ever heard, or do you know about a black hole? Like, have you guys ever heard about a black hole? Okay, no. I'm not talking about some kind of underground African porn site. I'm talking about like a black hole in space, right? Okay, cool. So it made me kind of curious, like what's on the other side of a black hole? And so I kind of went on Google, right? And just did a few searches on what's it about, so on and so forth. So I'm going to share some things with you that I found, and it's kind of, it led to some other conversations. So we're going to get into, as my mom used to say, we're going to get into the nitty gritty. So bear with me. Definition: a black hole is a region of space-time where gravity is so strong that nothing, including light or other electromagnetic waves, has enough energy to escape it. The theory of general relativity predicts that a sufficiently compact mass can deform space-time to form a black hole. Basically, what causes a black hole? Most black holes form from the remnants of a large star that dies in a supernova explosion. Smaller stars become dense neutron stars, which are not massive enough to travel. So when a star basically dies, it kind of turns into like this internal vacuum type of thing, right? And listen, yeah, we're not gonna go there. It just sucks everything down. No, I didn't want to go there. So get that out your head. And so nothing can escape it. And so people, theories, scientists, whatever, kind of wanted to know what's on the other side of a black hole. So it's crazy. You see a lot of films that journey into black holes and kind of do this whole imagination or embellishment or a reimagining of what's on the other side. And the theory is there's a whole ass development of a possibility of a new universe, right? Some scientists even believe that the universe that we are currently in is from a black hole from a previous universe. So think of it as there's this thing that just sucks everything in, and eventually it caves in on itself, and whatever is inside of it kind of just goes and expands and explores. So like a drain in a sink. Horrible analogy, but follow me. Goes down the drain, and the drain, it goes down the pipes and then into the whatever. But imagine the drain is the black hole, and the pipe that the water and anything is traveling down, it expands infinitely out into something else. So it's like a constant reach until another hole is formed, and whatever is near that hole rinse and repeat, right? So, how do black holes move? Black holes move through space-time, just like any other object in the universe. It is true, though, that black holes warp space-time more than other objects due to their extremely intense gravitational field. So nothing escapes this bad boy until it's ready to kamikaze itself, right? And it says, like, can humans survive a black hole? Of course, no matter what type of black hole you plunge into, you're ultimately going to get torn apart by its extreme gravity and die a horrible death. Damn. No material that falls inside a black hole could survive intact. Because of the pull, it just rips everything. It's literally everything gets sucked apart. So limbs, I don't want to say evaporated, but probably eviscerated is the best way to describe it. And it's just wild to me. And I was watching this one video that says something that if you really want to know what space is like, go to the bottom of the ocean. Which is weird, right? Because space is like a vacuum. And I want to say the bottom of the ocean is probably the denser version of what's in space. So the further down in the ocean you go, the more pressure crushes on you from the body of water, right? What I mean, space is the polar opposite, because it's a vacuum, so it's constantly sucking, so it's stretching and it's pulling. So they're kind of like the yin and yang of each other, if you look at it from that perspective. So I was like, okay. So then it made me kind of go into further digging about this phenomenon, right? So the theory again is this universe that we're in, we theoretically could be in our own version of a black hole. And there's a, what did they say? It was something like there's a black hole near, what is the closest black hole to Earth? And it's called Gaia, E.I.H.R, which was discovered in September of 2022 by a team led by Kareem El-Badri. Hopefully I pronounced that right. It is 1,560 light years away from Earth, in the direction of the constellation E.I.T.H.R. Lord, I know I chopped it up, but it's pronounced or spelled O-P-H-I-U-C-H-U-S. That's crazy. I know it's 1,500, nearly 1,600 light years away. I get that part. But that's just what they're able to see. So it kind of dawns the question about, okay, how did our universe come about? And I know that there's beliefs of how the universe came about. But there's a difference between research discovery and, believing in whatever you choose to believe in of how things originated. So it's fascinating because a lot of us tend to think we're the only species on this planet, in the galaxy, in a universe, right? And it's so weird, man. Like when you leave your imagination open to think about something that's outside of your normal, like shit can get really, really wild. So I literally just Googled black hole, and it kind of just gave me the whole, plethora of different questions or whatever, right? So here's another one. For those of you who don't know how long or how far the distance of 1 light year really is. For most space objects, we use light years to describe their distance. A light year is the distance light travels in 1 Earth year. 1 light year is about 6 trillion miles. That is a 6 with 12 zeros behind it. Now, they say light can travel around the world 7 times in 1 second. That's what I believe the speed of light. right? So I need you to understand how fast that shit is. 1/1002. Around Earth 7 times. That's crazy. Like that's crazy. That's crazy. How many years until the last black hole that that's a stupid ass question. I'm not gonna ask that shit. Where does a black hole take you? Kind of answer that. When matter falls into or comes close to the event horizon of a black hole, it becomes isolated from the rest of space-time. It can never leave that region. For all practical purposes, the matter has disappeared from the universe. Again, they kind of have the theory that we were once the byproduct of a prior black hole someplace else. And there's just constant pockets draining whatever happens to come close to it. And again, the black hole is believed that's when a star kind of it collapses and dies out and is no longer existing. And it kind of just takes whatever it can with it. So this is the other thing I talked about, or not talked about, but one other thing that I saw, and we're going to kind of get into, what's my man's name? Neil, hold on, I want to be respectful. Neil deGrasse Tyson. So there's a video on YouTube we talked about that I was watching earlier, and I want to play that so you guys can hear what he says about time travel. It blows my mind because growing up, and I'm sure a lot of people are kind of like this too, you see films about time travel, about space, and all this other fun shit, like Star Trek. It goes back in decades before a majority of us who have listened to the podcast even existed. The wonders of time and space have always been a curious thing for man. So it's always been in the research. When films come out, y'all, you guys have to understand, believe it or not, it's irrelevant. But the fact is, these theories come from somewhere. Whether someone had an idea or someone was given an idea, the shit comes from somewhere. So you have to understand, or at least be open, you should be open, that what you think is true may be a minuscule aspect of what the true definition of it is. Right? So it's just wild to me. So we talked about this. What's on the other side of a black hole? This is a definition from back in 2014. So if you had any plans to travel into a black hole, I urge you to reconsider. This isn't a way to quickly travel to another spot in the universe or transcend to a higher form of consciousness. There's nothing on the other side. Just disassembly and death. We don't know that for sure, but that's the belief. Because according to Neil deGrasse Tyson, no one has physically ever traveled. They've done theories. I'm sure they put something in there to kind of do the research for it. But there is no conclusive evidence of what's on the other side. Here's another definition from July 29th of 2020. Beyond the event horizon lies a truly minuscule point called a singularity, where gravity is so intense that it is infinitely curved space-time itself. This is where the laws of physics, as we know them, break down, meaning all theories about what lies beyond are just speculation. Like, the gravity is so, like, just special strong. Can you imagine, I want you to imagine, like, someone grabs you by the shirt and yanks you. The torque from that pull, that pulling you to you, your hand, your arm, and your head kind of jerks back because of the momentum of being pulled. I want you to extrapolate that by like a bazillion, trillion, hundred million. And you're just being pulled by this force. If you live in the Midwest and you live like in Tornado Alley, those winds travel at like, up to 60, 70, maybe a couple hundred miles per hour, depending on, for the Vegeta scale, F3, F4, F5, so on and so forth. Okay, imagine adding a couple extra zeros to the speed of that tornado, and you're being pulled by that. It's easy to see how you can just get shit ripped off of you at that momentum. The messed up part about it is, and this is kind of where my imagination gets a little crazy, is imagine, well, you couldn't imagine because you would make it, but if there was something, object in front of you and you like splattered into that, like that's weird. That's weird. But the theory that kind of made me think was, again, we possibly are the bystander of a previous black hole that existed. And I saw this, I'm trying to see if I can find it, right? Because I bookmarked it. How many black holes are there? Let me do it this way. How many black holes are there in the Milky Way? Astronomers estimate that the Milky Way has anywhere from 10 million to 1 billion stellar black holes, with masses roughly 3 times that of the sun. I get it. This shit might be boring to some of you guys, but understand, when you look up on a very clear night and you see a star is an explosion years ago, and we are just now seeing the light from that explosion. And in some cases, that's how black holes are created. But obviously we can't see them from this distance, right? Some 100 million isolated black holes lurk within the Milky Way. We're finally starting to bring them into the light. That's just bananas to me, y'all. It's I don't know how you guys aren't fascinated by this shit. Probably because you're never going to see one that doesn't bother you. I get it. Makes sense. But it's like, that's just crazy. So then when it talked about nothing escaping a black hole, then it got me thinking of, there's another thing that's called, God, I'm trying to find it. I'm looking for it right now, where it talks about, there's a black hole, there's something else in a wormhole. Hold on, let me see if I can find it in my phone. I think I may have saved it on something. And it was a difference between a wormhole, a black hole, and something else. Give me one quick second. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. Yeah, we're gonna find out. We're gonna fly around and find out. See if I can find it. Here we go. So, I guess there's 3 types of holes, and this post simplifies it. It says black hole sucks everything in. White hole lets nothing in. Wormhole, a tunnel connecting 2 points in space-time. That's crazy. That's crazy. Because if you, I need to post this on social media. Because with the black hole, if you look at it, it's kind of like a drain. Like I gave the example earlier, where everything goes in and nothing can escape it. The white hole is kind of like the opposite. Think of it as like if you turn that same drain upside down, right? And everything that's being sucked into, you cannot go in because of instead of the gravitational pull of the black hole, it's like now a gravitational push in the white hole. This is in our Milky Way. Like, this is within our galaxy, yo. Like, this is it. And I haven't even looked into a wormhole. a tunnel connecting 2 points in space-time, right? And Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about time travel. And if you are a fan of the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, you remember in the Endgame where Tony Stark discovered time travel. Well, in actuality, time travel, because time is basically just relative, right? We perceive it to be one way, or at least we're taught to perceive it one way. There's a multitude of different ways of time, right? And I think that was just a way for man to try to control things. So he says, I'm going to find this thing, because there was a post that I saw and I've been looking for it all damn day. But I saw this thing on Google, and I'm going to read this to you, what Neil deGrasse Tyson says about time traveling, because it's really profound when you think about it. One quick second, let me see if I can find it. Okay, cool. So this is from express.co.uk/news. And this is back in 2021. Time travel breakthrough as Neil deGrasse Tyson proposes huge leap forward. I'm going to skip the beginning part of this article and kind of just get to the point that I feel is the nitty gritty, as my mama used to say. So it says, in some ways we are traveling in time now. We just happen to be prisoners of the present in the eternal transition from past to the future. If you travel fast enough, you can actually leap forward in time. Relatively specifies that if you travel at a good fraction of speed of light, time will tick more slowly for you than all your loved ones back on Earth. And I remember him saying this in a video. And I was trying to find a post that said if you travel at so much speed. But basically he says like this. If your journey is too long, you might be gone for 10 years. And everyone else on Earth ages 100. You have gone into the future and everyone you know is dead. So it was basically, if you leave Earth at the age of like 25 and you get into the spaceship, or you get into where you're able to travel at the speed of light, and you're gone for 5 years, you will come back as 30. But everyone on else is now like 30, 40, 50 years old. Can you imagine going on a spaceship? I know someone probably heard the song and started thinking about it immediately. We're getting on a spaceship, traveling, X amount of times the speed of light. And you're up there for 60 months at that rate of speed. And you come back 5 years older, because that was your time. And on Earth, it's been 30, 40, 50 years. Look how much life has changed just since COVID alone. Look how much we have changed as a society in less than half of a decade. So imagine hopping up in space for 60 months and coming back 3 to 6 decades later, everybody else. That's some Benjamin Button shit. You literally put pause on your life. in theory. That's... Think, bruh. I'm sorry. That's kind of awesome to think about. It's also unfathomable to think about if you're one of those, people who know everything. And this is kind of like the beauty about learning about shit you don't know, because you kind of just get deeper and deeper into this research. And I try to tell people this on every single episode, like, if you're going to learn something from someone who's reputable, who's credible, and non-biased, right? And I do my best personally to talk to people on a multitude of levels and different sides of the fence, because no one knows every single thing. And what you think you may know, you might know that from your region. You might know that from your neighborhood. You might know that from your area, but it might not be the same for somebody on a different coast. So it's like Neil deGrasse Tyson is a reputable scientist, and he spits things in documented facts. He doesn't spit things necessarily as we would identify as uninformed emotional opinion. It's irrelevant on how I feel, because this is what's been documented, this is what's been proven, this is what's been established, this is what is believed, this is where we're headed, this is where we were coming from. It's this. Now he'll have his opinion about what he feels about what he's talking about, but ultimately it is what the fuck it is. So I found this video also with him. Again, this is on YouTube. No, I'm sorry, before I get to the YouTube thing. This is E.I.TH.R.news. And I'm only going to play a few minutes of this video. Again, it's from E.I.TH.R.news. It's a YouTube video that I'm going to play. And the heading says, Neil deGrasse Tyson explains faster than light. It's crazy, but I want you guys just to listen to what's being said by this dude. And like I said, within a few minutes, I'm going to stop.
It's an exceptionally fascinating idea that's been raging in our mind's eye since the dawn of civilization, and we've all thought about it in one form or another. Going through the stars and visit distant alien worlds. Unfortunately for us, interstellar space is extremely vast, so our current technology is useless for reaching the stars. And to make matters worse, it takes 4.2 years for the fastest thing in the universe, light, to reach our eye from Alpha Centauri system. And that's the nearest neighbour to our sun. According to Einstein's theory of special relativity, nothing can ever exceed the speed of light. But what if there was a way to get around this cosmic speed limit? What if you could warp the fabric of space-time itself so you effectively traverse interstellar space?
As far as we know, nothing can travel faster than the speed of light in a vacuum, period. Not like we haven't wanted to make that happen. Not like we haven't looked around the universe to see if we can find something that violates that rule. We have. We've looked hard. We've never found anything to violate that rule. Not only that, it is a fundamental tenet to Einstein's theories of relativity. So what that says is this speed of light rule is not a limitation of technology. It's a basic fundamental feature of the universe. Now, there are other ways to go faster than light. You can cheat in a legal way. For example, on Star Trek, what did they have? They had warp drives. Warp drives, what did that do? Well, here's your galaxy, and they're on one side of the galaxy and they want to get to the other. So what do? They turn on the warp drive, and that takes the space-time continuum and bends it. And now here's where they are, and here's where they want to go. They just take a little gap through the fabric of space-time, unwarp the galaxy, and there they are. They cross the 100,000 light-year diameter galaxy. Works every time. So that's legitimate in the sense that we know space and time can curve. And if you can control that curvature, you can get to a place much faster than a light beam would have taken. Much less time than it would have taken a light beam to traverse that same journey. I want warp drives that can do that. That would be really cool. But not only that, this little path that they took to cut from one part of their space-time to another, we have a term for that as well. It's called a wormhole. That is a portal in the space-time continuum that takes you from one part of the universe to another. The more energy you have, the more you can curve major sections of the universe to traverse great distances. And I assert that if we're ever going to travel the stars, if we're ever going to cross the galaxy or visit another galaxy, it's going to have to be in some kind of way that exploits wormholes and the curving of the fabric of space and time. It's going to have to, because our fastest spaceships, if you hop a ride on them.
That's crazy, right? Like, listen, I get it. This is probably foreign to a lot of people. And it's a bunch of mumbo jumbo to some others. But we are always trying to figure out how shit works. Just think about that, man. Like, space. That's a big ass room of nothing. And it's infinitely reaching and infinitely growing. And we're a planet. There was a meme of, actually I think it was a bunch of pictures. I'll go to my phone later and look for it, but where it kind of compares Earth to the moon, and the moon to the sun, and the sun to like Mars, and then Mars to Saturn. And like it gets to this one planet, I think it's like, Lord knows I can't even remember what it is. But by the time you get to this big kickball looking planet, you no longer can see Earth. Like it doesn't exist anymore in this comparison to other planets or whatnot. So when you really think the universe evolves around your conceited ass, you're wrong, right? This thing is huge, and this is just an aspect of the universe, of the galaxies that we're able to see. Now, he kind of also goes into this in a different interview, which I'll play in a quick second, of there's a possibility within these, I want to say he was talking about the black holes. There's a possibility that there are multi-universe, things happening simultaneously, where there's a universe where, you know, I may be an Asian female doing a podcast with a completely different name, right? Where whatever the situation is that you're currently going through right now, you literally could be the opposite of who you are. You could be living a life of who you wish you were. That version of you probably does exist. And that version of you is having dreams of currently who you are now. That's the theory. These things exist. He goes into this other video of basically how they've traced our existence and how we're cosmically connected to the universe. And that's going to lead me to a different conversation that I'm not going to have today. But I can tell you right now, it's going to piss a lot of people off. That's fine. Because we talk about the elephant in the room. We like to discuss things that people really may not be easy with discussing, or things that are out of the norm for conversations. So I'm looking at the rest of this video, and I kind of want to see something else they talked about. Now we're going to skip that. So I already gave the reference of where you could look into if you are interested in that. Where is the other one that I was watching earlier? Is this one it? Give me one quick second. I want to say, not that can't be. Gotta love it when a video shows ads. This has to be it. So just give me one quick moment while this thing uploads. No, he was on, oh, that's where it was. Got it. Okay, so I'm only going to have you listen to like maybe a couple more minutes of this. So if for whatever reason you're bored, you probably want to end the podcast right here. But I don't know how you would be bored because this shit is dope. So this is a YouTube video from Piers Morgan Uncensored. I don't really follow dude. I just kind of did this search for Neil and he happened to be on his episode. So we're going to listen to a couple minutes of what they're talking about. And he kind of asks him questions that, again, this is a scientist, where they've discovered what they have learned, what they have figured out, and how much they realize they still don't know. And it kind of just piqued my interest. So if you're geeked out with this shit like I am, you're going to love this. If not, you're probably rolling your eyes and kind of huffing and puffing. And, well, then I guess I ain't talking about you. Hold on, listen to this.
Welcome back to the final part of my fascinating hour with author and astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. So now left on a cliffhanger, 10 burning questions about the universe, rapid fires. Here we go. What was there before the beginning of the universe? Everyone asks this question. What's the simple answer?
Oh, I'm delighted I can respond to you. We don't know. We got top people working on it. Okay.
You know what?
There may have been a multiverse.
I like that. I like the honesty. So we genuinely don't know. People just don't know, right?
We don't know. There might have been a multiverse that's birthing universes, and we're one of them. But that just pushes the question one step further before that. What was around before the multiverse? So we just don't know. It's a frontier question right now.
How will the universe end, and what will there be afterwards?
We have several ideas for how it will end. One, it'll just continue to expand forever as the temperature descends asymptotically towards absolute zero, and all phenomena and all processes will cease. All stars will burn out. They will shut off in the night sky one by one, and the universe will be cold and dark. But if the expansion of the universe, which is rapid and accelerating, is real and continues, that'll take us to the Big Rip, which we may have talked about on my last visit. That terrifies me, because if the fabric of the universe stretches faster than the material substance can sustain it, then it rips into the. That's in 22 billion. That's in 22 billion years.
I know, that was the only comforting part of that conversation, was it takes 22 billion years to happen. Right, will we, in the next 100 years, live on the moon or Mars or any other planet other than planet Earth? Human beings.
It's not that we can't do it, not that we couldn't figure out to do it. We'd have to ask, what is your motivation to do it? Do you realize Antarctica is wetter and balmier than every spot on Mars's surface, and you don't see people lining up to build condos in Antarctica? So I can see them as tourist destinations. I'll totally take a tour and have maybe the Moon Olympics. That'd be fun. Okay? And moon chefs shows. And the joke I always like telling, and it never gets old for me, is like the new cuisine on the moon and restaurants would be great, just that they wouldn't have any atmosphere.
That's brilliantly terrible, that joke. Is the universe infinite? And if not, what's on the other side of it?
So the observable universe has a boundary. It's not a physical boundary. It's a It's a consequence of how fast light travels and how old the universe is. So that sets a horizon. A ship at sea, there's a horizon. Is the ship captain saying, is this all there is? Or does the ocean go on? And they know from their experience the ocean continues. We're pretty sure the universe goes well beyond our horizon. We don't know how far, and it's possibly infinite. And if it is infinite, then it wouldn't make sense to talk about it as.
No, then the second question becomes superfluous. Is time travel possible?
We can definitely travel into the future by moving faster relative to everybody else. And then you'll come back less aged than those you left here on Earth.
I rather like the sound of that.
Tricky part.
Once again.
Yeah, the tricky part comes if you want to go into the past. And that's really dangerous. It is so dangerous that Hawking was thinking to himself that there must be some law of physics we have yet to discover that prevents it. Physically, it's called a time travel protection conjecture, right? Because if you go back and prevent your parents from meeting each other, then you will never be born to go back in time to prevent your parents from meeting each other.
That's kind of wild, right? Because a lot of with like Back to the Future, right? Everyone loves Back to the Future. In that film, Marty McFly. I'm not going to give it away, but it's a classic. Back to the Future is, and again, Marvel Cinematic Universe, when they talked about going back, getting the Infinity Stones from Thanos, blah 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 blah. So anyway, it's an interesting thing to really think about. If you went back in time and stopped something, like you literally could create someone from not existing. Like he gives an example right now. I'm watching the video of how if you want someone not to be born, you don't have to kill anybody. You can simply just have your parents have sex 10 minutes sooner or 10 minutes later, and possibly a different seed would fertilize the egg, and all together it'd be something different. You might not even be here. Completely different look, completely different everything. So basically, there's multiple universes out there. Like that's the crazy part of what he's saying. I'm just going to play this one more time. We'll play this part. You guys can kind of listen.
Put your hands up.
Hawking just wondered whether we'll come up to a boundary, a rule that says, nope. The equation tells us what a higher understanding of the universe might actually
My bad.
Infinite number of them. Hence the possibility that I'm interviewing you on my show from London, and you're here in the, all combinations of all atoms and molecules and thoughts and neurosynaptic firings would exist in the infinite universes that are out there.
You've actually suggested, I think you suggested in the book, didn't you? You suggested that there could be a parallel universe where dreams are reality and realities are dreams.
Yeah, or where stars are gazing down at you rather than you gazing up at the stars. There's a lot of variations in this, and some of these universes would have slightly different laws of physics. So you don't want to visit them without full understanding of the consequences of that. You don't want to collapse into a pile of goo because the molecular forces that previously held your body together in this universe don't work in the other universe. That would be a dangerous freeways to take.
Okay. Is there anyone else out there, Professor?
This is important. Listen to this.
Anyone? You mean just life at all?
Yes.
Probably. We are made of the most common ingredients in the universe. Hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, iron. This stuff is everywhere in the universe. Life on Earth was opportunistic. It didn't take the rare ingredients and figure out what it could do. The most common ingredients. And life started almost as quickly as it possibly could have. And we're just one planet out of 8. Get over it. 8 planets, and 1 star among hundreds of billions, in a galaxy among hundreds of billions. To suggest that we are alone in the universe would be inexcusably egocentric, driven by some.
Sorry, that to me, it kind of that speaks a lot of volume to me. Where remember in Men in Black, at the end of the movie, where the camera starts to pan out, and
Put your hands up.
you zoom away from the building and you go to the atmosphere. And from the atmosphere, you go into the clouds and you go into space, and you zoom past all these different planets, and then you keep going into it, and you go out to the Milky Way, and then you know, all this other fun stuff, right? And then it zooms into the galaxies, and then you zoom it out into the universe, or you know, whichever is bigger, galaxy, universe, galaxy. And it keeps going and going and going and going and going. And then it gets to the end, what we think. And it appears that we're just like marbles, and like these aliens are playing marbles. And these marbles are the different universes that exist. I know it was a fun film to, you know, look at, watch, and think. But if you put it into a grander scheme of things, like I said, man, a lot of what we know, we're realizing we don't know. And the parts, again, I'm not going to get into it today, but the part that a lot of people don't understand is, like he says, if you trace it back, we are a mixture and combination of some of the most basic things that ties us into the universe. That is crazy. We're some of the most basic things that ties into this thing we live in. So, wow. This kind of stuff does fascinate me, because it literally creates your imagination to think, if you're open to it. And most people are extremely close to it. For whatever reason, they just are. But yeah, man, that kind of just took me into a whole little research for the past couple of days. And this isn't the first time I've looked into this kind of stuff. It's just the first time I've talked about it on a podcast. So you guys are more than welcome to look into it yourself if you choose not to. But it's very difficult to argue when... Now, one thing I would say this with science. The only thing that can outprove science is better science. Right? I liken this quote-unquote debate. Science is logic, belief is emotion. Belief doesn't have to have any logical explanation to it. It's just a feeling, it's an intuition. And that's fine. Logic is things that have been proven and or documented and relative over and over again. And the more you dig, the deeper you go, the more you'll find, okay, this is validated, or this is an exception, okay, this is the rule, this is that, this, the third. There's a multitude of different ways of looking at it. And I think one of the biggest issues with people is we believe my way is the right way. And I think the best route to go about is to understand there's a different path to reach an answer. Simple as that. It's crazy, man. It's just, that shit's wild. It's really wild. Like, before the internet, I don't think anyone does it in major cities, but one cool thing you used to do back in school was you would go, and this is like even back in the 50s and 60s, 70s, people would do stuff like that. So, like I say, it was before the World Wide Web. Cats would go to different points, drive to a lookout, and gaze up at the stars and kind of just think. Some people, I wasn't one of them back then, me personally. Some people will go, smoke on something, bring something to drink, open conversation. Nothing wrong with that. But you kind of just went up there and just talked and just zoned out and got one with the universe, right? I kind of think instinctively, naturally, that's what we enjoy doing. It's literally, you're kind of gazing at home. You're one with the universe, based on Neil's explanation. So when you go out and you enjoy nature, you're getting in tune with yourself. That's kind of what I'm grasping for what he's saying. That's why it's so important for us to get sun. That's why it's so important for us to de-stress ourselves, decompress, get away from the monotony of life, hustle and bustle, work. That's why it's so crucial for us to do things that we not only love, but we enjoy. You're going to have peaks and valleys, highs and lows. That's life. But self-care is important. And to be in tune with nature is again, we're all part of this globule of life, right? So it's all connected. And that's kind of where, again, I'm not smoking, I'm not drinking, I'm not snoring, I didn't ingest, I didn't inject. I'm simply using my third eye. And it's like, when you sit down and just think, you realize some of the shit that we're putting ourselves through actually kind of goes against the laws of nature for fill in the blank. It's crazy, man. Like, again, my A1 was the one who kind of put me up on game when it came down to the neurons in water, like the sound of water and how it can decompress and just release stress, tension from you. When y'all meditate, or if you decide to, I suggest you to meditate. Me and the teacher, we kind of have like this thing. She does, I think she said like light thunderstorm or ocean waves crashing and shit like that. I love listening to the wind blow. I love listening to thunderstorms. I love listening to running water through bamboo pipes. I love listening to the sound of tires rolling over gravel, right? Like nature sounds. If you ever just sit back, relax, and just allow your brain to just not stress on anything and get more in tune with nature, that's why people who live like in the country can't really stand the hustle and bustle of the big city. And if you're from the big city, you really can't stand out the slow pace of the country. But I can tell you this right now. If you go from big city to country, you very rarely ever have anyone who wants to go back or has the same appreciation for the big city. When you get someone who's from the country and they go into the big city, you rarely ever have those folks enjoy the big city. They can't wait to get back to quiet, because it's almost counterintuitive to how we are wired to be. I'm not saying that we can't do the shit, because obviously we do it. But once you get to in Fort Bragg, California, if you drive along, I want to say it's Highway 20. There's a turn off, like this cliff, and you turn off of it, and if you turn around and look at the cliff and kind of look above the cliff, there's houses, right? Cool, no big deal. But outside the cliff is literally the Pacific Ocean. And I remember the last time I was there was like 10 years ago, 12, 13 years ago. Me and some people were out there traveling, selling fragrances and shit like that. And one of the homies I was with, he had never been to the ocean. And so when we went to see his reaction, I'll never forget it, because he was amazed. Like, it was nighttime. You saw the moon shimmering off the water. You could hear the crashing of the ocean. on the bedrock, and it was just crazy. And I'll never forget, dude. His nickname was Lazy. Lazy kind of took a few steps forward, and it reminded me. I'm not saying he was like this, but it reminded me of the scene from Titanic where Jack was holding Rose, and Rose kind of put her arms out. Because Lazy put his arms out and with his eyes closed, and he had took like this deep breath and exhaled, like he was taking nature in. And I'll never forget that, because it always reminded me of how people are when you're surrounded by nature. You feel home. When you're in the big city, congested and stacked on top of one another, you feel hectic. That's why driving, taking a road trip, or just getting the fuck away is so good for the mental state. So learning about stuff like this, about space and time and shit like that, it kind of reminds me it's bigger than just this office. It's bigger than just this. It's the podcast. It's life, bro. Like, it's life. It's crazy. So, before I end today's episode, again, it's a How Do You Mile Friday, right? So, Mile, how do you make it look easy? What are you going to do to make shit look easy? What are you going to do that was so difficult prior to, that you're now going to apply a different strategy, hit it with a different approach, so you can knock it out? So you can look back over your shoulder, look in your rearview mirror, and be like, yo, I did that shit. For me over here, it's really simple. Come next week, I'm getting an additional location for the entertainment aspect. And I'm going to be really focusing on the film, the movie aspect of the company. Start getting into the modeling, getting into the music of everything. So it's going to allow me to have two separate worlds. One for this and for anything that's quiet and brainstorming. The other for creativity and expression. So I'm going to be able to take the ideas that I had prior to 2020 and apply that shit and make it to where my world is going to become a reality versus talking and putting it on paper. Like, this train is moving. This train is really, really moving. So it's about to be dope. And I'm going to get back on track with the World Update, which the World Update was my version of inspiring and positive news. And that's going to be exclusive on the GNSETV.com website. So that's going to be crucial. And I can't wait to start working again on the film animation series idea that I haven't told you guys about just yet. Because, well, I'm kind of playing it close to the chest. But after next week, there's really not going to be much excuse. We're also going to be, like I said, we're going to be getting a pool table for that room. So when cats come over to work on projects, it's going to be a lot of fun. Because when you have fun with what you do, you really, it isn't work. You're working, but it's not perceived as work. So that's what your boy's going to be doing. I was at the end of this month, we're going to be launching very first pair of women's high heel shoes. So this month is going to be huge. So I'm trying to get a lot of shit done before the beginning of football season, because we might have something in play for that as well. But all in due time, I'll share with the rest of y'all. Listen, it's your boy D-Cal. I sincerely appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to this. Man, thank you for everybody. Thank you for everybody in Landing, New Jersey, Sacramento, Folsom, Antioch, Fresno, East Coast, West Coast, everywhere in between. Social media, the E.I.T.H.R podcast, E.I.T.H.R. Remember, Christy's Confections, Christy_Confections on Instagram. Follow my girl on that. GNSETV.com. Free subscription. Support your boy. And we'll talk to you guys next time. It's your boy, D-Cal, the E.I.T.H.R podcast. We out.